Okay, a lot has happened since the last mission, so try to keep up. The space shuttle spent a long time in R&D. When they were finally rolled out and proved that they could actually work, officials at the KSP were ecstatic. Virtually all of their plans for operations in Kerbin's orbit were changed to revolve around the shuttle, especially the new space station. Unfortunately, it wasn't until after the original KSS was deorbited and destroyed that the shortcomings of the space shuttle were discovered. These oddly beautiful craft, while impressive, could carry no more than 5 tons into orbit. That put them below even the early Kerbin rockets in their level of effectiveness. Their greatest advantage? A larger crew capacity. Larger by 1, anyway. Secondly, the space shuttle was mostly recoverable. Mostly meaning the crew cabin and the payload bay. Kerbin crew pods were the only salvageable parts before the shuttle, as cargo-only rockets were completely lost. The shuttle's main tank and boosters were expendable, but the orbiter itself always came back to take crew and cargo on their next missions. For its limits, the program continues because of 2 factors. 1. The engineering team at the KSC worked too darn long and too darn hard to scrap them after only a few missions. And 2. Despite its limits, the shuttle is only designed for Kerbin orbital operations. It was never meant to go anywhere else. With the shuttles covering home base, as it were, interplanetary missions would still require big and powerful rockets, perhaps more powerful than necessary for any missions to orbit or even the moon. The first vehicle built for these long-haul missions was Duna 1, an improvement over the old Menmus 1 design. This reusable starship would be assembled in orbit and refueled after every mission so it could go on another one. The idea was sound, as was the engineering. The only setback, honestly, was fitting refueling flights into the launch roster. 1 ship made the trip to refuel Duna 1 after its test run. Many more would be required, but all that time and fuel was needed on other launch-ready missions. Thus, Duna 1 has been put on indefinite standby, waiting for its chance to prove itself a worthy vessel. This was strike 1 for the program. The next problem was a series of complete breakdowns in the planning department. By this, I mean no one could agree on what to do next. Go to Duna? Do we take Duna 1 or build a disposable rocket? Well, here are 6 plans for rockets that could replace Duna 1. Oh, but wait! Why don't we build a base on the moon? It's easier to launch from there. Okay, here are plans for a moon base. That'll take time to assemble. Oh, and plans for a Duna rocket launch from the moon. But wait! We just destroyed our only space station. We need a new one. Get the shuttles on it. No, the shuttles can only lift 5 tons. Oh, well, just redesign the parts of the station. But that means more shuttle missions. Forget the Duna plans. This is more important. Oh, shoot! One of our shuttles was severely damaged on its flight. That's expensive. As you can guess, all these conflicting ideas and schedules and budgets caused absolute chaos for the space program. That was strike 2. It wasn't all for naught, though. 1 mission was designed, approved, and successfully launched. A 2-part exploratory mission to Jewel. The probe would park in orbit of the gas giant, then shoot a tinier probe into the atmosphere of Lathe, a moon that is believed to be habitable. That mission is currently in progress and will be discussed at a later date. But now to the Kraken in the room, the 3rd strike that has all but grounded the space program. We all saw the declassified tapes of the so-called Duna Shuttle. It was a noble idea and a fascinating execution of a plan that would hopefully give us the most efficient means of Duna transportation yet, but the structural failure of the vehicle seconds before landing, while not resulting in any casualties, brought the Kerbal resources department down hard on the KSP. Never before had such an unsafe death trap of a spacecraft been flown, with crew no less. Every mission on the books was put on hold, except for the Jewel probe, which was already in space. Even Jebediah, known daredevil and thrill-seeker, expressed unease and disappointment with the DS's failure. Werner almost lost his job, but was spared when it was revealed a separate in-house team under another Kerbal's direction was responsible for the DS design and first flight. Every member of that team was fired. So that about covers it all. You've heard what's been going wrong, so let's talk about what's been going right. After the inquiry into the KSP, several models of rocket were recertified for duty. The Space Shuttle and Kerbins 2 and 4 were added back to the active fleet roster. The Space Shuttle Eureka, the first one launched, completed its 2nd mission, where it delivered a docking rig to the new space station. The next mission on the books will be a Corian crew module, which originally completed a trip around the moon, will deliver the first crew to the station. After that, the Space Shuttle Champion will launch on its maiden flight, bringing fuel and supplies to the station. As a side note, the Kerbin 3 rockets, while not necessarily obsolete, are being retired. They're really just smaller, sleeker versions of the Kerbin 2, so for the sake of eliminating redundancy and any drawbacks the smaller size brings, they're bound for a dignified end. There are still a few modules to attach to the new space station. These modules will be very heavy, so the Kerbal 2s will take over for the shuttles, which will still serve to refuel and resupply the station, as well as launch any small satellites the KSP produces. After that, we'll be free to refocus on our larger goals, Duna namely. It's still not certain whether or not Duna 1 will be retired, but even if the KSP decides to replace it, it still means a lot of work to put Kerbal on Duna. Beyond that, plans are still in the preliminary stages. We of course want to visit all the other planets in the Kerbal system, Moho, Eve, Dres, Elu, and the remaining moons of Jewel, but every one of those missions carries some new challenge. They're farther away, they're smaller, there are even asteroids out there we'd like to visit or bring back to Kerbal for study. One thing's for sure, there's a whole lot more exploring to do, out there in the final frontier.